This is the video for 2-3, and there is no vocabulary for this section. However, I did ask you a question, and I said, what is the first step I said you always need to do when solving for a variable in an equation? And the answer is, remove any fractions by multiplying each term by the denominator. Example number 1. Okay, I cannot start solving for my variable until I completely simplify everything that is on the same side of the equality symbol. Then, and only then, can I start undoing operations and getting everything away from my variable. So I want to look at everything that's on the same side of the equality symbol, and I want to ask myself, what can I simplify? So here I have 5m, and I can combine it with a positive 2m, which gives me 7m. So now I want to go ahead and bring down everything else, and I have 5 equals 7m minus 23. I simplified everything that was on the same side of the equality symbol, and now I can start undoing operations and solving for my variable. So I'm going to add 23 to both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And then how do I check my work? I plug in 4 into both places. And I want to ask myself, when m equals 4, is this equation true? Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and work out these on your own. And here are my answers. Notice what I did here is I combined a negative 2y with a positive 5y. I combined negative 2y with a positive 5y, and I got 3y. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next example. Again, I cannot start solving for my variable until I completely simplify everything that's on the same side of the equality symbol. So I can't look at this and start by adding 1 to both sides, because this is not a 1, this is not a negative 1. I cannot start by adding 1 to both sides because this is not a negative 1. This is a positive 8. Because look at what happens when I fully simplify this side of the equation. You can see that this was not a negative 1, it's a positive 8. And so now I can go ahead and start undoing operations and start isolating my variable. So I'm going to start by subtracting 8 from both sides. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 16, and I get x equals 28 over negative 16, but I want to simplify that, so this is going to be a negative 7 over 4. And I always say, do not take your fractions and convert them to decimals. However, when you're plugging it back in to check to make sure if you did the problem correctly, sometimes it's easier to go ahead and convert this to a decimal in order to plug it back in to check your work. If you're checking your work, that's fine, and sometimes that's easier. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and work out this on your own. And here's your answer, x equals 6. I started by taking this side of the equation and simplifying it. And so I distributed the 3 into each term using multiplication. Okay, let's go on to example number 3. Solving equations with fractions. Okay, so when you look at this, you can say, all right, well, I need to get rid of my denominator, so I need to multiply everything by 4. every term by 4. But wait a second, I have another fraction. So then I need to go through it and I need to multiply each term by 3. And in doing so, I will remove the fractions. And you're not wrong. You can do it that way. Or you can go ahead and do this a little faster and just multiply everything by 12. I'm going to multiply each term by the least common multiple of the denominators. So I'm going to multiply each term by 12. I want to multiply this term by 12 and this term by 12 and this term by 12. And let me show you what I'm doing. I'm multiplying each term by 12. And if you need to do it this way and set it up like this, please do so. Eventually you'll be able to do more of it in your head, but if you need to set it up like this right now, please do so. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cross reduce. So that becomes a 3. That becomes a 4. And now you can see how I removed my denominators. Now what do I want to do? I want to simplify everything that's on the same side of the equality symbol. And now what do? I divide both sides by 5. And when I do so, I think that's 24. Let me check. Yes, 24. Okay, if you need to watch that again, please do so. And then work out these on your own. And remember, you're multiplying each term by the least common multiple of your denominators. Okay, so you should have worked these out, and I'm going to work them out for you. My least common multiple of 9, 6, and 3 is 18. So I am going to go ahead and multiply each term by 18. So that means I'm going to multiply this term by 18, and this term by 18, and this term by 18. And then I'm going to cross reduce. And then this is a positive 15. This is a positive 15. And so I want to do the opposite because I want to remove it from this side. And so I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. I'm going to divide both sides by -6, and I get m equals 13 over 6. If you got this wrong, redo it. And again, in order to check your work, I would definitely convert this into a decimal. I'd say 13 divided by 6, take that divided by 3, and just convert everything to decimals just so you can check your work. Okay, and on this example, I want to multiply each term by 20. I'm going to multiply each term by 20. And so what am I doing? And again, right now I would work it out like this until you get the hang of this. Now I'm going to cross reduce. So I get and now what am I going to do? I'm going to combine everything that's on the same side of the equality symbol. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 23. And I don't think this can reduce, so this is your answer. And leave it as a reduced improper fraction. And again, if you got it wrong, redo it. pause the video and redo it. And if you need to rewind it and watch it again, do so. Okay, finally, solving equations that contain decimals. You don't have to do it this way, but it's kind of important that you can see that this is the same thing as this. And why? Because I multiplied every term by 100. And why did I pick 100? Because I want to remove the decimals. And in doing so, I can remove these two decimals. If I just multiplied it by 10, it would remove this decimal, but it would not have helped me with those two decimals. And solving equations that contain decimals, the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and multiply the decimals out. Again, you don't have to do it this way, but it's really important that you understand how and why this and this are the same thing. They are equivalent equations. The value of the variable is the exact same for both of them. So now I can go ahead and solve. I'm going to subtract 350 from both sides. Negative 226. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2, negative 2, excuse me. And I get 113. I did not need a calculator for that. And another reason why it's super important for you to be able to do this, again, there is a huge non-calculator part of your SAT. And every question on that test, in that section, you can answer without a calculator, but you have to know tricks. This is actually a lot harder to do than this is. So if you see something like this, that's what they're trying to figure out. Do you know how to do this efficiently? And how do you do it? You multiply the denominator out. And then once you multiply, or not multiply the denominator out, I'm sorry, you multiply the decimal out. And then once you multiply the decimal out, the numbers become a little easier to work with. And again, try to use your calculator as infrequently as possible. Like, I should not have needed a calculator for this. I just wasn't thinking. This one, yeah, you could use a calculator for that. That's reasonable. Okay, so go ahead and do this on your own and think, what do I need to multiply each term by in order to remove the decimal? Okay, so the answer is 12.55, and again, it's okay to give your answer as a decimal. Why? Because the problem was set up with decimals, so that's okay. So what did I do to make the math easier? I multiplied each term by 1,000 to get rid of the decimal. Why did I pick 1,000? Because that term right there, that number goes out 3 decimal places. It goes out to the nearest thousandths place. And so if I picked 10 or 100, that would not have helped me with that number. And so I multiplied everything by 1,000, and it just made my math a little easier. Again, it's not something you have to do, but it's something I want you to practice at least once. Again, so you can just recognize and understand that these are equivalent equations. The value of the variable is the exact same, even though I multiplied each term by 1,000. Okay, so go ahead and start your homework and let me know if you have any questions.